From Austin Film Festival, this is On Story, a look inside the creative process from today's leading writers, creators, and filmmakers. I'm your host, Barbara Morgan. This week on Story, a conversation with Kemp Powers on his experience co-directing Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the sequel to the 2018 Oscar winner, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. The second installment continues the story of friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, Miles Morales, as he is catapulted from his home in Brooklyn through the multiverse. In a neighboring universe, Miles encounters a multi-dimensional network of spider people known as the Spider Society. When Miles clashes with the other superheroes, he has to set out on his own to save the ones he loves. Co-director Kemp Powers began his career in journalism before pursuing playwriting. He wrote the screenplay for Regina King's directorial debut, One Night in Miami, which he adapted from his own play of the same name. That script earned him his first Academy Award nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay. In 2018, Powers began his work in animated film, serving as the co-writer and co-director of the fantasy film Soul. Soul follows a middle school teacher and aspiring pianist who falls into a coma and must reunite his soul with his body in time to play in a famous jazz quartet and earn his big break as a musician. Powers sat down with Evan Narcisse, a comic book writer, journalist, and video game narrative designer. He has written comic books published by Marvel Comics, including his limited series, The Rise of the Black Panther, which he co-wrote with Ta-Nehisi Coates. Narcisse worked as the narrative design consultant for the video game Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales. Powers joined Narcisse for an insightful conversation on learning to write for multiple different mediums, the social responsibility of being a Black creative, and the unique process of collaborating with animators. Clips of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, courtesy of Sony Pictures Animation, Inc.
You talked about the last time you were on Story. There was a phrase that you said about the social responsibility of a Black public figure. And I want to ask you if that intentionality that you put into Soul, and obviously very much so in One Night in Miami, were you able to carry that over to Across the Spider-Verse?
Absolutely. It's evident, and I can't help myself. You know what I mean? And Across the Spider-Verse was even more extreme because he's supposed to be a kid from Brooklyn. So I felt incredibly invested in the character of Miles, and not just his Blackness, but his Afro-Latino-ness, because, again, it's like a lot more nuanced than I think a lot of people realize if they don't grow up in that environment. But everything from food items to articles of clothing to like some of the needle drops and the song choices. Like I remember at one point, there's a scene at the end of the movie where Miles is tied to the heavy bag, and he is face to face with his other self, his alternate version. And initially, when we were cutting that scene, it was always scored to Mobb Deep, Quiet Storm, but we couldn't clear the sample. So we were trying to come up with different music to play. And at one point, Phil was like, Phil Lord was like, put Tupac in there. And I was like, I love Pac, but like, you can't have Hail Mary playing on some Brooklyn dude's radio. That just doesn't work. And he was like, what's the big deal? I'm like, you just don't understand. Huh? I'm going to get so many calls from people about this, and they're going to just try to pull my Brooklyn card. So it's little weird things like that where why are we having this weeks-long argument over this needle drop song? And thankfully, our music supervisor bridged the gap.
Please, Uncle Aaron, just hear me out. I was bit by a spider that gave me powers. It wasn't supposed to bite me. It was supposed to bite someone else. Someone from here. I don't belong here. I need to go home. Okay?
One of the things I love about the structure of Across the Spider-Verse is that moment to moment, you really feel like Miles's world opening up. You start where he's lonely, and it's like he's at school, he's in the counselor's office meeting, and then Gwen comes back. And the scene that really starts to I think, expand what Miles feels like his possibilities can be is the web swinging sequence with Gwen when she first comes back. It feels like it goes from the party to the city at large, and then obviously to the big multiverse stuff. Like, How did you guys need the scene to work in terms of the story?
That's funny. That's another scene that had to really earn its way into the film, because when they're swinging, the goal of it was to show that in the time, without words, to show that in the time that Miles and Gwen have been apart, how much more competent he's become as a Spider-Man. So we decided to do that with a game of horse. They're having a conversation. We have some exposition, an opportunity for them to catch up. We can establish the romantic competition with Hobie in the conversation. But also physically, we see that, remember, Miles, when we left him at Into the Spider-Verse, was still like falling off of walls. And we wanted to show that Miles has not just had a growth spurt, but he is a competent Spider-Man. Like, this is the guy who is capable of defending his whole city. And we wanted to do it in a way that was honestly cool without saying, like, he can defend his whole city. And him being, because in the first film, they always said that Gwen was by far the most competent spider person, like the most able spider person of everyone. Let's show him match beat for beat with Gwen to show how capable Miles is as well. So that was really the purpose of the swinging scene.
Yeah, it's funny. That scene really reminded me of comics because one of the tools you have available to you is like you can have the visuals tell you one thing and the word tell you another. So you really can like multiplex the storytelling in that way.
Wait, hold on. There's an elite society with all the best spider people in it?
Okay, so there's this lady, Jess Drew. She rides a motorcycle. Oh my gosh, I'm learning so much from her.
Oh yeah, I've learned a lot of stuff too. I've leveled up my whole thing. See?
Oh yeah? Let's see it then.
Let's go.
Thread the needle.
Over my head, falling on my head, but all of my fears are already dead. And
Whoa.
if I could rewind it for you, if you could remind me
Easy.
what I felt before.
And Miguel. The whole thing was his idea.
Right. And who's Miguel?
Oh, he's like a ninja vampire Spider-Man, but a good guy.
A vampire good guy. I'd pay good money to see that. So how long ago did they invite you?
It's only like a few months ago.
Months is kind of a long time, isn't it?
Okay, this one counts for
All of
2.
my fears were already dead. And if I could rewind it for you, if you could remind me what I felt before I felt.
Look at you.
Look at me. Keep the change. So this club,
Look at that dum-dum.
what kind of stuff do you do?
Guy in the stripes, 10 points.
We're trying to keep the multiverse from collapsing.
I thought we did that already.
Like, last week we had this mission to some Shakespeare dimension, and Hobie and I just like...
Wait, who's Hobie?
Oh my gosh, you would love him. He lets me crash in his dimension sometimes.
What does that mean? You stay overnight or?
Anyway, listen, they're pretty strict about where I go, or I really would have come to see you sooner.
Right. So why'd you come now? Don't do that. No.
Was there anything like that for you that you injected that came straight from your life as a little Easter egg to your family or people who know you?
Honestly, yes, but I think everyone on our team did that kind of stuff. Like, I've never been on something where so many people just put their own little personal things in the film, large and small. There are definitely little things I put in as an homage to my family, and I think it's just between me and them.
Okay.
But at the same time, also, Miles himself was a character. Like, my son is biracial, so like Miles is kind of like him.
Yeah.
To me, so that was like really critical, like getting his hair a little bit longer, and it looked like my son's hair looked at the time that I was making the film. Everyone put little things in it. One of the funny things I didn't even realize one of our animators had done is they put the 3 directors in the film.
Oh, wow.
As background characters. So there's one point where Spot and Miles are fighting, and there's people playing chess, and in the back there's 3 dudes sitting at a table, and it's me, Joaquin, and Justin.
That's hilarious. So is there a scene in Across the Spider-Verse that like represents a level up for you in terms of craft and approach?
It's the scene that I really obsessed over, that I really loved, and I'm like impressed that we managed to get all the way through. There's a couple. There's the counselor's office scene.
Yeah.
I really just adored that scene. And that was one that I remember, like, the first time we screened it for a preview audience, some people had issues with it, and I'm glad we didn't have to make the changes that people requested. And the scene with Miles and Gwen on the clock tower.
Yeah.
You know, it really is always so great to talk to you.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, how many people can you talk to about this stuff?
You don't even know. What?
You're the only friend I've ever really made after Peter died.
Other than Hobie, right?
That's different.
Yeah? How's that?
I don't know. You and me, it's...
We're the same. In the important ways, you know?
In every other universe, Gwen Stacy falls for Spider-Man. And in every other universe, it doesn't end well.
That was a moment that for a while was almost in danger of being like cut out of the film. Because in animation, everything is intentional. A piece of paper, if it flies by, someone had to like design it, build it, it's a set, everything. And so you usually don't get time to really have these lingering scenes. And I was a big fan of this film from the 80s called Say Anything. And I wanted to really have like this like say anything kind of moment of like unrequited love, which a lot of people also didn't like the idea of there being any kind of like romantic feelings, which I was like, why not? Like,
have you met a teenager?
But the thing is that there's been articles written, I'm sure you've read articles about how they say like younger people don't want romance anymore.
Yes, yeah.
And it's like, really? Did anyone say that? I don't remember like a memo going out. And I'm just like, I'm assuming people here have significant others, so it's different, but people still long for one another. I felt like that's a base human emotion. So that clock tower scene was critical. And also I love the fact that like, we went into Across the Spider-Verse. I was a huge fan of Into the Spider-Verse. Like, I wasn't even really interested in doing an animated sequel, but I loved the first one so much that when Phil and Chris called me up and told me the story, I was like, damn it, I'll have to do this. But we also kind of knew from the get-go that we don't try to like just do what they did and one-up it. We're not going to be able to match the leap of faith moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Miles, like, there's no way we're going to match that. Just like, there's not going to be a song like Sunflower.
One of the things I want to ask you about, I've written superhero characters, and especially in the comics, multiple creators contribute to the overall shape of collective legacy, right? Because Miles' Afro-Latino identity is so important to his makeup as a character, I want to know what conversations you had. I know Phil Lord is half Cuban, and Peter Ramsey obviously worked on the first movie. Did you have the sense that there was a baton being passed to you as a creator of color on this project?
I honestly hadn't really thought about it that way, to be honest, because I think Phil and Chris reached out to me because they dug the work that I was doing and they'd heard about me. I always feel a certain responsibility but it's something that I'm putting on myself.
Yeah.
It wasn't a situation where it's like, all right, Kemp, you're our black guy, so like, let's make sure. No, it's just, and honestly, some of the things that I'm concerned about have nothing to do with Miles' blackness or his Afro-Latinoness. Like, I'm concerned with every single character in the film and making sure that they have an arc. And I'm concerned that we get the Asian representation right, because boy, did we like the pooch initially on that. And we had to kind of go back to the drawing board because we so misfired on Pav at first. But again, a wonderful thing about this collaborative medium is that as long as you don't have too much of an ego, we all have egos, but as long as you don't get defensive about it, they're out there learning opportunities during the process. Like the process of the Pav character, we screened it, and I will always be grateful that we had a lot of Indian animators, particularly in Vancouver, and they all got together and just like wrote us like an email saying like, this character's not cool. And rather than get defensive, first we set up a Zoom meeting with them all, and they kind of like aired what they thought were some of the issues with the character, and not just it not being aspirational enough, but how like not authentic it seemed. And so we very quickly assembled an all Indian writer's room and spent a day just like taking notes and spitballing ideas. And Chris and Phil rewrote that scene fast, and it was a strain on the production, but we rebuilt the whole thing. We rebroke it and we did it again. And a moment in the film that was one of our weakest became one of the most popular.
Hey, who's the new guy?
Hey, Pav. He's Miles, and he wasn't invited.
Oh, you weren't invited and you came anyway.
Right?
Hey, new guy must be in love with you.
Okay,
No,
whoa.
I'm not.
Oh, I'm very good at reading people.
not.
Who are you?
I'm glad you asked, new guy.
I'm not a new guy.
My name is Pravitra Prabhakar, And for the past 6 months...
6? And even he got a watch?
Yeah,
Being Spider-Man is so easy. I wake up, skip the workout because I'm naturally buff and I don't want to get too big, you know? Do almost nothing with my amazing hair.
You don't use any product at all.
Just coconut oil, prayer, some genetics. Then I swing by school, don't really have to try, but I do anyway. Fight a few bad guys, feed a few street dogs, quick break for a cup of chai with my Maya auntie.
I love chai tea.
What did you just say? Chai tea? Chai means tea, bro. You're saying tea. Would I ask you for a coffee with room for cream?
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Then I hang out with my girlfriend Gayatri. She's an extremely classy teenager. Hey girl, tonight I was thinking. Hello, Police Inspector Singh. This is your daughter. I do not know her. And to top it off, I live in the best possible Spider-Man city, Mumbai. Quick tour. This is where the traffic is. This is where the traffic is. This is also where the traffic is. There's traffic here too. And this is where the British stole all of our stuff. Whoa!
It's so cool to like run into folks from India who like love the Pav that we did. Pav used to be a lot younger. He seemed even more juvenile. I'd say that we would all agree we kind of almost fell into the Mowgli trope.
Pav is one of the characters who's like the ultimate scene stealer in the movie. Him and Hobie are neck and neck. I got to give the edge to Hobie just because his don't give an F attitude like really runs counter to the most of the arc of the film.
What's up with your suit? Is he bleeding from his armpits?
Miles, Hobie, Miles.
Hi, I've never heard of you because Gwen barely ever mentions you.
Alright, my name's Obi Brown. I was bitten by her. Wouldn't you like to know? Yeah, man. And for the last 3 years, I've been the one and only. Wait. You think I'm going to show you my secret identity? Come out of here. That is when I'm not playing shows, antagonizing fascists, staging unpermitted political action / performing art pieces, or having a laugh at the pub with a man them. I'm not a role model. I was briefly a runway model. I hate the AM, I hate the PM, I hate labels. I'm not a hero because calling yourself a hero makes you a self-apologizing narcissistic autocrat.
Come on, I thought you hated labels.
Wendy, you left a jumper around my place.
Well, what's a jumper?
It's a sweater.
How many sweaters do you have?
That's not mine, I'm sure.
And your toothbrush.
Wait, what?
Are those my chucks?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of the credit to how we developed Hobie was around Dan Kaluuya. It really was. Like from the initial, before we even reached out to him, when we were designing the character, when we talked about Spider-Punk and punk rock, we immediately kind of like turned and leaned into this English punk rock thing. If I'm being perfectly honest, I didn't really know much about the Hobie in the comic books. And we went back and really had to like think about how Hobie worked in this story. And I think being pushed by Daniel, so then we went back to him and he was like, all right, he's got an arc now. Cool. Came in, but we built that kind of around Daniel Kaluuya, who it's odd because he always plays American accented characters.
Yeah.
But if you hear him in conversation, his natural Camden English just like sits in your ear.
It's propaganda, bro. To distract you from the truth.
And what's that?
I ain't got Scooby-Doo, mate. Because that's what they want.
I want to stay on Hobie for a little bit because to me, the scenes where like his reason, his function in the plot, the scenes where those are most illuminated to me are the ones where they're in the Spider Society HQ for the first time. Obviously, you've got to give all these different characters lines that advance the story and give you shadings and points of view. Like, how do you keep that guy in the mix when we're meeting Miguel for the first time?
One of the fun things about these different characters representing like extreme versions of belief systems, like, you know, Hobie being punk, is that there's a certain amount of BS in all of it. And you want to take a little bit of the out of Hobie. And like even in that moment where him and Miles and Gwen are walking to meet Miguel, and he's really like trying to warn Miles. He's like really dropping some knowledge on him. And Miles is like, then, you know, why are you here? And he just says, I'm just here to look out for my drummer. That betrays that like he has kind of a, you know what I mean? It's just like there's a certain amount, or when he says, you know, I don't believe in, you know, I was like, I thought you said you didn't believe in band. He's like, I don't believe in consistency. There is an innate inconsistency to a dogmatic belief in anything, because you have to have a little bit more flexibility. And I think that was like critical in that moment for like them going, Hobie, Gwen, and Miles like going to meet with Miguel. And I love Peter Parker. I mean, let's be real, like growing up, what made Spider-Man such a great comic for me is growing up in Brooklyn. You know, DC took place in Gotham and Metropolis. Marvel took place in the city I was living in. So I'd see a background in a Marvel comic and look out the window and there it is. And then Peter Parker being the one kind of like superhero who was just like a poor kid.
Yeah. Always broke, always just like struggle. Like I so related to Peter Parker, and I will always love. I mean, the classic characters are icons for a reason. I'm always gonna love Peter Parker, Spider-Man. I'm always gonna love Batman. I'm always gonna love Wolverine. I'm not the biggest Superman fan, for what it's worth, but it's just like I dig Superman, but he's just so powerful. I like the vulnerability of those characters and the arc of them. So. I think Miles can be popular too, and it's not taking anything away from Peter. And whoever's created whatever character, the reality is once you put it out in the world, it doesn't belong to you anymore. And that goes for everything. The day Across the Spider-Verse was released, it's not mine, Joaquin's, Justin's, Phil's, Chris's, no matter what we say, no matter and that's with all of these things. I worked on Star Trek Discovery for a while. I don't think anyone who creates a character has any idea where it's going to be taken by subsequent creators. I think that's one of the wonderful things about comic books. As much as Stan Lee might have created a particular character, for example, like I was a big fan of, like I said, Wolverine, Daredevil, Batman. A lot of it was attributed to Frank Miller and Chris Claremont's run on those particular comics. To me, they're as much the creators of those characters as the original creators, because they took them, I think, in a direction that the original creators would have never thought of. I'd like to think that in making these Spider-Verse films, that perhaps I'd hope that we took Miles and a lot of these characters in a direction that maybe Brian and Sarah didn't necessarily envision them going, and then subsequent versions of it are going to take in places that none of us could ever see them going. I've talked about this with friends of mine, again, comics readers of a certain age, like you and I. You would read a Spider-Man comic, and yes, you see Peter Parker, but when he puts on that mask, you're like, that could be a brother under the mask, though. You know, the cops hate him, he's broke, he's got a boss. Like, you could really see yourself in that character because he's such an everyman. That's one of the things that Peter Parker changed in terms of the superhero formula. Before Peter Parker, the vast majority of headlining superheroes were all grown-ups. We talk about Peter's slogan, with great power there must also come great responsibility. Do you feel like there's a phrase like that that sums up Miles?
Well, we were trying to make it, I'm going to do my own thing, but we'll see if that sticks or not. And that's very much I think the philosophy of all the artists who worked on this film. Phil, Chris, me, Joaquin, Justin, all of our animators, all of our story artists. I don't know what people's expectations were of this film, but we definitely heard a lot of Into was my favorite movie and you guys suck. It gets back to us. A lot of the vitriol that we get and people trying to tell us the lane we're supposed to paint in, what we can or what we can't do. This whole idea of canon, which I understand people liking canon to a certain extent, but then suddenly it becomes these creative handcuffs where you can't do anything with it. And as an artist, as a creator, as a filmmaker, no one wants to be tied down. No one wants to be told that they can't do anything or go this way or go that way. Ultimately, the reason all of us go on this journey to try to be storytellers, to try to be filmmakers, is to try to do things that we hope can surprise and delight people. And just giving you what you already know you want isn't necessarily going to surprise anyone.
On Story is brought to you in part by the Alice Kleberg Reynolds Foundation, a Texas family providing innovative funding since 1979. On Story is also brought to you by Bogle Family Vineyards, 6th-generation farmers and 3rd-generation winemakers based in Clarksburg, California. Makers of sustainably grown wines that are a reflection of their family values since 1968. The project is supported in part by the Texas Commission on the Arts. This show is produced by myself, Barbara Morgan, Elizabeth Mims, and Emily Locke. Our associate producer is Freya Neely, and our editor is Rishi Bajekal. Music is by Brian Ramos. Copywriting by Mazzy Smallwood. Production assistance comes from Dennis Moniger, Travis Kennedy Sound, Phil Mazzetti, and KUT 90.5 in Austin. Go to austinfilmfestival.com to learn more about Austin Film Festival and Conference each October. Until next time, I'm Barbara Morgan, and this has been Austin Film Festival's On Story.